So,
Okay, well, thank you for the background. There is a ton to unpack with this topic. Um, so there's the manipulation side, which I kind of want to separate for a moment, unpack that, and then get to the meta side. And the meta side's really fascinating too. When we talked briefly earlier, I did share with Alex because I had a totally different perception from your text. And then when we talked on the phone, I was telling Alex how excited I was and talking to her a little bit about it. And she was talking about her thoughts. So I definitely want to get to the meta. But kind of what you mentioned there at the end with somebody that might go out and hurt someone else's store because of all the things you previously said about how we're kind of being trained to live in this virtual world. I think that's the cultural manipulation part that's also fascinating. So, from just previous conversations we've had in the past and a little bit of what you said now, I kind of get the perception or the idea from you that you feel like a lot of things that I do kind of want to get into specifically, but things like um, we've been through a pandemic in the last 3 years, and then some of the major events that have going on lately. Um, do you feel like that is being we're sort of being the strings are pulled and things are happening because of heavy influence through the media and online. Is that what you're referring to, or is that a different topic?
no, I'd say maybe both, because I think there is definitely a factor into the media's manipulation of all of these things. I think they've certainly escalated. Um, a lot of these issues, I mean, you know, as one of our talking points, the whole Russia Ukraine thing. I mean, undoubtedly, it's a terrible situation. I mean, can't argue that. But I think now you're interestingly enough seeing this super bizarre like rhetoric around, you know, a tactical nuclear war and all this stuff, and it's like openly being talked about. And I I can't for the life of me understand how so many people in the media or otherwise, just average everyday people, are very comfortable around this topic. you know, like we're talking about like civilization ending stuff here. I mean, what's the saying? I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. That's kind of where we're at with this, and I think you have this. I guess the point there is the media has so much ingrained itself into our lives that they've convinced a certain amount of people out there that, yeah, this is what we should do. This is what should be expected. And I mean, from my standpoint, I mean, it's like pure brainwashing. I mean, nobody in their right mind should ever be like, oh, yeah, I mean, we should, yeah, tactical nukes. I mean, good idea. Let's wrap this thing up. I mean, the last thing anybody wants is nuclear volleyball going on across the globe. Nobody wins in that. Everybody loses always. And even if it doesn't impact you directly, there will certainly be some fallout, pun intended, I suppose, with
Right.
regards to a financial crisis. Food chains, supply chains, transportation, the grid, all of these things. I mean, the, I don't think people really understand how fragile of an ecosystem we all live in. I mean, everything is in like, how do you want to say, just in time arrival. Everything, food, energy, transportation, doesn't matter. It is all on schedule. If that schedule gets disrupted, it's a terrible situation for everybody. But and I think
Yeah, we found
it's
that
all,
out during COVID when like
yeah,
toilet paper runs out or
right.
baby food
Yep.
ran out. I mean, it doesn't take very long before people start to panic, and then there's a rush on whatever, they want to go and get any toilet paper they can.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you would see. I mean, if something were to happen, you could almost assuredly say that every single grocery store in America would be cleaned out in a day. Then you're talking probably price gouging, super inflation. I mean, we're already at high inflation, but it would be astronomically increased. Gas would go up. I mean, everything. I mean, your way of life, as you know, it would almost end immediately. And I'm not sitting here saying like we're all going to turn into vapor dust from nukes being launched all over the place, but it will affect you in ways like I don't think these people that are like okay with this right now, I don't think they're thinking about that stuff. They're thinking about, well, we need to help those people, so whatever it takes. Not quite that simple. Let's reel it back in here a little bit and think about this logically and try to resolve this with some diplomacy. And I know there's been efforts and there's probably still ongoing efforts that nobody's even aware of. Like, I'm not going to say like they're just giving up on that, but always that should be your number one. So going back, I think the reason why so many of these things happen is because they know uh, through media manipulation, the powers that be know that whatever it is they decide to do will be twisted and turned so that a percentage, at least, of the population is okay or compliant with it. And that's to me the real tragedy. I mean, I've for years and years and years said the greatest enemy of the people is the media, and it's for cases like this. I mean, that's just I don't want to say it's a microcosm, it's an example, but that's just one of the things that they do. So when we're talking manipulation, that's maybe on the extreme end of it, of course, but it's kind of scares the shit out of you when you think about it. It's I
Yeah.
just the things I'm seeing, I never in my life thought I would see. You know, People talking about these things like they're normal. Um,
It's always weird
yeah,
to think like are they using the story that's at hand to get their agenda, or did they actually create the situation to push their agenda?
yeah,
Because
both.
I right, and it's like it's hard for me. So with the war with Russia and Ukraine, um, when it first came out, it was kind of like, oh no. And I haven't focused on it a lot since then. But when I knew we were going to have this conversation, I did look into it a little bit more. And it scared me because honestly, I hadn't heard as much on the headlines, things that are just popping up on my phone.
Hmm.
So I thought that it had started to calm down, which is obviously wrong. And but when I was digging into it, I don't really know, whose agenda is what. I just know that it seems like you said they're talking about nuclear war and how close we could be to that. And I
Yeah,
just have to think that like we only have two sides in our political system, and I think neither side would want nuclear war unless I'm naive
right.
about that. But I don't know why somebody would push this.
I don't either,
So
man. Yeah, that's a mystery that we'll probably never solve. And I mean, as for the parties that be, and there's a term for it. It's escaping me now, but you create the problem, so you have the solution, and you think of all of the ways or the end results that could come from something like this, whether something happens or not. But the fear you stoke and the policy you can change um, could be pretty dramatic. And I mean, if nothing else, look at just, I mean, I don't really care what side of the political aisle you're on. I think they're both super corrupt. I mean, I don't think you can argue that, but look at the way they've used the Russia Ukraine situation with regards to, well, why is gas up? Why is inflation up? Well, Putin's gas hike, Putin's, inflation and all this. No, no, it's not. I think it's a convenient excuse for you to make when you know you have failed policies. And again, the media is controlling that message. Do you see anybody in the media like, really asking hard questions on those topics? Well, how exactly is that influencing? Because you see this pattern of it's always somebody else's fault, but when we create the solution, we did it.
we
Good on
solved
us.
it.
You
Yep.
know, we're not responsible for the gas prices going up, but when they go down, you can pat us on the back for it. It's just That's super bizarre behavior, and that only exists when you have a weaponized media that, I don't care again what political side you're on, if they are aligning their agenda with either side, you're going to see a result like this. And that's what you have right now. So